Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are here today to give you more information of the Good Times Initiative. We have petitions out in the community right now, but we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the importance of that this initiative. So we have a panel of guests here that are going to talk about it and share their information with you all. Again, my name is Kathy Harris. I'm going to moderate this panel. But first, I'd like for you to understand who we are and why we are here as an organization. I am the co-chair for our Voting Access for All Coalition. VAAC is our acronym for Voting Access. We give voice to those that are impacted by the justice system. We are a coalition of individuals and organizations representing those who have been incarcerated and those who have not, who feel voting is empowering and powerful. We know that any barrier to voting, whether it is logistical, informational, or lack of trust in the process, is voter suppression that we must confront. Our mission for VAAC is to ensure that all persons in pretrial situations, individuals about to be released from prison, and those formerly incarcerated, along with their families and community members, have the opportunity and knowledge that they need to exercise their right to vote. So this initiative will help those families, help those that are returning citizens, those that are incarcerated and future returning citizens. We want to make sure that they earn the time that they deserve, that they worked hard for while they're incarcerated. But again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more and let you know how important it is and how not only are those that are incarcerated, but also their families and their communities are impacted by this as well. So we are again here today to talk about it. And our speakers, we're going to have Natalie Holbrook she's a program director from American Friends Service Committee in Ypsilanti. Bonnie Zabel, criminal justice advocacy coordinator in Northern Michigan. Michelle Pearson, the grassroots organizer from Detroit. Reverend Milford, co-chairperson of Board of Justice, United Methodist Church. Darryl Douglas of the Sentencing Project in Detroit. Kim Woodson, founder of Redeeming Kimberly from Detroit. And we also will have joining us later, State Senator Erika Geiss, representing the 6th District Senate seat in Wayne County. So again, thank you for joining us. And I'll start with our first speaker. Natalie Holbrook is going to talk to us, give us a little bit of history and introduce herself and just give us some more information on the Good Times Initiative. Natalie.
Thanks so much, Kathy. I appreciate everyone being here today and am honored to be among you all. I come at this work as a program director with the American Friends Service Committee's Michigan Criminal Justice Program. We are an advocacy organization that help people navigate the cumbersome problem of prison, help their loved ones and people inside make it through each day. And we work to eradicate prisons completely in Michigan. So with that being said, Good Time has been an issue that has come up since I started this work in 2003, because in 1998, the Michigan legislature outlawed the Good Time and created a truth in sentencing policy that has impacted people very negatively throughout the last many years and has also increased the number of people in prison in Michigan. So with that being said, I just want to give some statistics. So in 2007, our prison population peaked at 51,500 people. And we are now down to 33,000 people. That's awesome. It's a really great number to be at. But the folks that are stuck in this system are the people that we need to be paying the most attention to, and we need to be providing them programming and educational opportunities that are meaningful. And so what's happened in the last many years is that we've gotten all of the people we can get out. And there's always turnover. There's always new intake. And there's always people being paroled. But there are people who are serving many years, and there are people who are serving limited years. And if we had some form of good time or earned credits in Michigan, we could make it, I would say the culture of the system could shift completely so that people are not just being warehoused and being provided program at the end of their sentence, but they're being provided programs and opportunities for rehabilitation that actually count towards good behavior, so that they can be given credit towards their earliest release date, which is the minimum sentence, and that is set by the sentencing judge and sentencing guidelines. And our maximum sentences in Michigan are set by the state legislature. And so because of these long sentences that we have in the state, we're creating a backlog of folks who can't get out. And so during COVID, for instance, the department did try to get all kinds of people out on parole who may have been past their earliest release date, but then bumped into a wall for people who were serving longer time and had no meaningful way for exit. So Truth in Sentencing puts a blockade up for compassionate release. It puts a blockade up for getting people out of the system who are worthy to come home and need to come home and be back with us. And I want to just talk about for a minute the shift in the culture of prison. And Michelle and Kim can talk about this more. But when you have more things for people to do inside, and there's actually real credit and real meaning behind those things for people, then you have a better culture in the system. You have idleness creates misery and depression. It creates it can create violence. It can create anxiety. If people are actually in programs where they're earning credit towards their time off that has meaning, they can do better, and the system itself can be a better place for them to live.
I see her. Okay, we'll promote her now.
So I don't think that prison is an answer for any of our social harms or the way we should be spending public dollars. But right now we have this very enormous system, and we need to get to tackle the people that are stuck there. And so I come at this from, we have this petition. You're going to hear more about it from all of these speakers to get this on the ballot. The reason that has to happen is because the state legislature has not been willing to address truth in sentencing since it was enacted in 1998. They see it as a political bomb, and they won't deal with it. There is a piece of legislation introduced, and I would love to see that move also. It has not moved because our state legislature does not have the courage to actually stand up and say, no, we want to do things differently. And so if the voters can come together and get this petition passed and get it on the ballot, then the voters can speak to it, or the legislation can pass. And I see all of this as an opportunity for public education around the problem of prison. People in Michigan need to know that our prisons are warehouses. There's very little programming. There's very little meaningful substance that happens in there. People who do well inside do it because they are awesome people, not because the Michigan Department of Corrections spends money, time, and energy to try to provide any kind of programming, trauma care, support, good therapy, anything at all. All of the programming happens at the end of someone's sentence, and we can totally shift the culture if we have things like good time and more funding for programs and education inside. And so I thank you for listening to me rant a little bit about history. And I know you'll get some more details from people who've actually lived inside the warehouses of Michigan Department of Corrections. Thank you. Kathy, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for that information. We'll turn this over to Bonnie. We'll ask Bonnie to tell us what Good Times is all about. Just give us more information. Bonnie?
Hi, thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Natalie, so much for that. And everyone that's going to come after me, thanks for being here. And thank you for joining us today. So again, as Kathy said, my name is Bonnie Zabel. I am the Northern Michigan Regional Advocacy Coordinator, consulting with several advocacy groups and community partners to build transformative relationships to educate and bring awareness to the needs for culture change within the criminal justice system. I'm part of this panel today in partnership with VAAC, which you heard was the Voting Access for All Coalition. The Voting Access for All Coalition gives a voice to those impacted by the justice system. I'm here today to speak on behalf of how your vote has a voice. The VAAC Coalition includes many dynamic and diverse individuals and advocacy groups on different platforms that have come together to build relationships for the betterment of our community and state. Coalitions form to bring together experts, activists, and policymakers to create that change. Today, we're talking about the Liberty and Justice for All Coalition that was formed to start a ballot initiative to reinstate a good time credit system back to our incarcerated men and women here in Michigan. The Good Time Ballot Initiative is necessary to bring an end to truth in sentencing, a law Michigan enacted in 1998 that requires individuals sentenced to prison to serve 100% of their minimum sentence in a secure facility before they are even eligible for parole. Michigan's truth in sentencing law, one of the harshest in our nation, has had dire consequences for our correction system. Truth in sentencing has dramatically increased the length and cost of sentences. It has eliminated any incentive for incarcerated residents to invest in rehabilitation. It eliminated many of the educational classes, the skilled trade programs, medical, mental health, and addiction services, and it has rendered over 70% of the entire population in Michigan's prison ineligible for parole. Now, nearly 25 years since truth in sentencing was enacted, Michigan has one of the longest averages of time served and the oldest prison population. Michigan's truth in sentencing law should be repealed because statistics show it continues to harm our communities, our family units, our justice impacted residents, and the prison employees without improving public safety at all. Today, we're seeking your help. If you can volunteer to collect signatures, if you own a business or attend a parish or are willing to be a host location for signature gathering, we would love to hear from you. Go to the goodtimeinitiative.org or the votingaccessforall.org website. Submit your contact information and we will reach out to you today. We also will find information on, you can also find information on their Facebook pages of locations where you can sign the petition. We're running out of time and we need to get to the required signatures to have the opportunity to have our voices be heard on the election ballot in November. So we need to come together. My personal journey started about 8 years ago when my 16-year-old son was charged with felony murder. My son made choices that were harmful to himself and to others. He had been introduced to marijuana by an upperclassman on the high school hockey team, and it wasn't long before his self-medicating for severe anxiety and depression became a daily occurrence. Due to his drug use and young age, my son was easily influenced by an older friend to go with him to rob a drug dealer. During the course of that robbery, a fight ensued and a young man devastatingly lost his life. This has been heartbreaking for everyone involved and forever changed the course of many lives. The felony murder statute states that during the act of a felony, if somebody dies, it doesn't matter how they died or what your involvement was in that process, anyone within the realm of that interaction can be charged and found guilty of first-degree felony murder, which carries a life sentence. The prosecutor sat at a table across from us and told us he believed the juvenile justice system was like sending a kid on vacation and that he only believed in punishment, not rehabilitation. Although he had the authority to treat my son as a juvenile or use a blended sentence, he chose to charge my 16-year-old son as an adult with felony murder and stated he would be seeking a life sentence. Even though during that conversation, he openly admitted that he believed the events of that day had no premeditated intent of harm or malice, and that without that felony murder law here in Michigan, the most he could charge was involuntary manslaughter, which carried a maximum of 15 years in prison. 2 weeks before trial, the prosecutor offered my son a 32.5-year plea deal. That was a very difficult day. But you know what my son said to me as I sat there crying? He said, "Mom, I'm going to take that plea deal. I'm not going to put that family through a trial. They have been through enough already." I've spent the past 8 years trying to honor and mirror my son's heart from that day. I focused my time and energy to advocate for the healing and betterment of all, to bring advocacy groups and communities together. to be a voice for those whose voices are kept locked behind those walls. I'm a little over 8 years into this journey, and we have a long way to go. Repealing truth in sentencing and restoring a good time credit system would give my son and those among him a second chance at some much needed hope. Hope that as he continues to mature and work through his remorse for his actions of that day, that his years spent in reflection and rehabilitation will earn him the ability to return to society at an earlier chance than his mandatory earliest release date of 32 and a half years. I'll close with a poem I read recently on an advocacy group's Twitter page. It is a poem written by an artist, Allison Maley, and it reads like this. If you are waiting for someone to end injustice, and I am waiting, and she is waiting, and he is waiting, it will never end. Use your voice. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Bonnie, for that, for sharing your story. And thank you for that information. I'd like to ask Michelle if she would join us and share her story and give her input on Good Times, the Good Time Initiative. Michelle.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you. Bonnie, beautifully spoken, and everybody that spoke before me. As Kathy said, I'm Michelle Pearson, first juvenile to be sentenced to life without parole in Michigan. I served 34 and a half years of my life in Huron Valley. This fight for a good time and to repel truth in sentencing is very passionate to me. Truth in sentencing is basically a death sentence. And as we all know, in Michigan, we don't have the death penalty, but we do because we have truth in sentencing. When you sentence people under truth in sentencing, you're basically sentencing them to die. So we need to get that off the table. It's a must. It's a dire call to get it off. If we get good time and disciplinary credits back, we're giving the men and women that are incarcerated some form of hope because they will be allowed, whether they're serving longer indeterminate or if they're serving life without parole or parolable life, if they have classes in there or groups that they can attend to help them deal with whatever led them to go down the wrong road, they're looking at a ray of light to say that they can come out here and be productive. But as it stands now, because we don't have good time, we have truth and sentencing, nobody sees a ray of hope. It's like, what am I fighting for? You know, what am I looking forward to other than hitting another dead end or another locked door in the system? And that's basically what it is. It's constantly slamming doors in these men and women's faces because they're not able to utilize the system to better themselves. They said that this is supposed to be a system of rehabilitation. It's not. If we don't choose to rehabilitate ourselves and come out here and be productive, it's not going to happen because the system is not doing it. They're locking them up. They're throwing away the key. We need to give these men and women some hope. That's why we're passionate about sign these petitions. Let's get this truth in sentencing, or should I say this death sentence off the table, and let's give them life again. You know, I was 16 when I went to the county, 17 when I went to prison. Since I've been home, I've been a community roots organizer, a grassroots organizer out here for these men and women. I fight, you know, not just for mental health, but for education, because as a lifer, I wasn't allowed to get groups. I wasn't allowed to really go to school. They just started it. Now they can't even get a GED. So how are we supposed to make them productive? Let's give them what they need. Let's give them this good time so that we can reinforce and reenact them getting educated and take away what the previous governor said, life means life. No, your life means death. Let's take that death sentence off the table. Let's give them life. Let's give them some real hope. Let's get these elderly, these frail, these overly sentenced, these youth home and show that they can be productive just like we were when we came home. We were juveniles when we went in. We're adults now. We're being productive. Some with our own businesses, some still in college. So if you all join us in this fight, start sharing our hashtags, start signing our petitions when we're out there, you're going to bring somebody home, whether you're personally affected or not. And with that, I'm going to bid you peace and release it back to Kathy.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for that information. I'd like to introduce Reverend Dale. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and why this is important to you.
Well, if you're like me at all, just listening to those testimonials from people like Bonnie and her son, and just now from Michelle and her personal experience, if it doesn't touch your heart, it's made of stone. My name is Dale Milford. I'm the vice chair of the Board of Justice for the Michigan area of the United Methodist Church that serves over 800 churches across Michigan. I also serve on the clergy team at Hope United Methodist Church in Southfield, the largest Black Methodist church in the Midwest, with a strong history of prison ministry. I've also been preaching pre-pandemic on a regular schedule inside of state prisons, and especially in Southeast Michigan, since 2006. That experience over the years has brought me face to face with many of our neighbors currently residing in lockup. And I say that very deliberately because they were our neighbors before they were sent to a lockup. They still are our neighbors in spirit, and they will be returning to our neighborhood. And we need to remember that always, that they are still our neighbors while they're in lockup. And it is in our best interest to encourage growth, education, self-discipline, all the kind of principles that are imbued in the earned credit program that we're proposing here with this good time legislation to eradicate that lie called truth in sentencing. Now, we're not talking about opening the doors to the prison. Rather, we're asking to give them the opportunity to earn their freedom, to demonstrate that discipline, that desire for growth and education that will serve them well when they are released into the community to be productive members of the community. Now, of course, I approach this first and foremost as a member of the faith community, and now as a pastor from a pastoral viewpoint. So within the United Methodist Church, I go back to what we call our book of discipline. It's our rules and regulations, so to speak, of what makes our denomination ours. I want to read you at least one paragraph from our social principles that guide our direction of our church. Here's a historic preface to that, going back hundreds of years. Quote, "The United Methodist Church has a long history of concern for social justice. Its members have often taken forthright positions on controversial issues involving Christian principles. Early Methodists expressed their opposition to things like the slave trade, to smuggling, and to the cruel treatment of prisoners." And I would put to you, just as an aside, that our current process of keeping people in jail for 130% of their minimum sentences constitutes just that, cruel and unusual. Closing on this paragraph is, "These traditions help us rediscover the biblical witness to God's special commitment to the poor, the disabled, the imprisoned, the oppressed, the outcast. In these persons, we encounter the living presence of Jesus Christ." And I can only say amen to that as a pastor. And it's that principle, those teachings from me as a pastor that encouraged me to join Michigan United. I've now been a member of the Transformative Justice team as a volunteer at Michigan United for a few years now. They're the largest social advocacy coalition in Michigan, and they're one of the founding partners of Liberty and Justice for All Coalition. That's the logo you see behind me, which is the Good Time Initiative. And you see, if you can read really small print underneath it, it's hashtag Freedom Earned 2022. And that's a hashtag I want everyone to start using. That's hashtag Freedom Earned 2022. Just in case it doesn't get picked up by other people, I want to recount some of the important points behind this coalition of freedom and justice for all for the good time. First, long range, our goal is to cut mass incarceration in half by 2030. Now, you heard from, I think it was Bonnie earlier, who spoke about how we have been making some progress, but it would take us 50 years to get there at the current pace. We've got to step that up, and this Good Time Initiative will serve an important role in getting us toward that goal by 2030. Now, Good Time specifically provides a pathway to, from my perspective, redemption for people who have completed their minimum sentence and have successfully prepared themselves. Because time spent in prison should really be corrective focus, but not punitive. It should be to rehabilitate people who are resident and allow them to reintegrate back into the community. Specifically, these good time incentives will help the workforce development in lockup and improve public safety when they return, because they will return with a skill set, with discipline, with training that will allow them to easily assimilate and integrate back into the community. Now, this has a real economic point to it too. It hasn't really been focused on as much so far. But according to internal documents that I have from Michigan Department of Corrections, fiscal year 2021, the average cost for a person to spend a year in state prison is over $40,000. Now, I'd like to point out, we're spending more incarcerating our neighbors than we are spending on colleges and universities in the state of Michigan. Let me say that again. We spend more incarcerating people than post-secondary education for people. How is that a priority for the betterment of our social goodwill? Compare that, if you will, to the cost, that $40,000, a community college. I know my daughter just finished becoming a registered nurse. And you know what her tuition was per year? Plus, admittedly, plus costs and side forth to it, about $5,000 a year is what it costs to become a nurse, a 2-year degree in the state of Michigan. So for $10,000, we could train a nurse. So for $40,000, the cost of 1 year of incarcerating a person far too long, we could train 4 nurses and ask any hospital how desperate they are for more nurses. So there's so many priorities that I want to talk about here, but really the priority I want to talk most about is getting out the signatures. We need to circulate these petitions. I want to hang on for a second here. I want to share a screen with you and tell you how we can not just talk about this, we can not just promise this, we can actually get active. I'm going to share a screen with you here. This is goodtimeinitiative.org. If you want to write that down, I'll have somebody put it in the chat as well, goodtimeinitiative.org. And it tells you all kinds of things about us as you scroll down the page, about how Michigan falls into the last 10% of the United States to reinstitute good time. We are outliers. By the way, I want to quote a research from the Pew Research people who did a study of most of the states, and the worst state in the country for average time spent for an equal crime was the state of Michigan. And as you may know, America is the worst country in the world, especially the Western world. We're even worse than Russia and China for the average number of people that we incarcerate as a portion of our population. So Michigan, if you want to take pride in the state, is the worst state in the worst country. So it's our responsibility to not just pay attention, but to step up and be counted. Step up in the pews, go speak to your pastor and arrange to go. I'll click on here, petition training. We can go to this page on that website. We can learn how to collect these. And here's a training from the executive director from Michigan United on how to go out and collect those signatures. Further down on that page, you can fill in some information, and best of all, put in a question and request information on how you can become a point of origin for petitions to be gathered in the community and returned in time. It's all hands on deck. We have to create and fulfill as many petitions as humanly possible. We have hundreds of thousands to do before the end of May. And so I put out a call to everybody in the faith community to stand up and be counted as Christians, stand up for the principles that go into our faith, whether you are a Methodist, a Protestant, a Catholic, a member of our Jewish community, or a member of the Islamic community, whatever your faith, speak to your faith leader, join Good Time Initiative, and speak up for the disadvantaged in our community. Kathy, I thank you for the time.
Thank you so much for sharing your information. We appreciate that. And we got to get out. We need to get those signatures. Now I'm going to ask our brother Darryl Douglas if he would share his information with us.
Thank you so much, Kathy. My name is Darryl Douglas, and I'm going to share my story from my perspective. So between the years of 2005 in 2010, I worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Right out of high school, I saw a billboard that said, make $3,000 a month, be a correctional officer. So I signed up. And it was one of the most pivotal decisions that I made. Now, while I made that decision because it was a way to help put food on the table at home, where my single mother was taking care of myself and my younger brother, it allowed me a chance to look behind the bars and see how things actually work, and it would inspire the work that I've done since then. Imagine being 18, fresh out of high school, and working behind bars at a prison. Over time, I eventually moved up to sergeant and then lieutenant. And as a lieutenant of correctional officers, part of what you do in Texas is administer discipline when there are disciplinary cases, right? So if there's a fight or if there's some other type of infraction, there's disciplinary that is then engaged. If I was asked what one of the most positively impacted things to change lives from a firsthand knowledge, from seeing it firsthand, would be Good Time. Because what it does is it provides an incentive for people to do the things that the Department of Corrections probably wants them to do. Things like getting your GED, things like going to certain courses and classes, things like getting on-the-job training. These are things that are not only incentives to the person who's serving time, but also to the people of Michigan. Why? Because when people get out, they're gonna be contributing members of their community. They're gonna have the jobs and skills that are gonna make our communities better. What does this look like in practice? Behind bars in Texas, as it is right now, you get what's called day for day. So for every day that you serve and every day that you work, you get credit for that day. So work could also mean going to get your GED. It could also mean going to some sort of vocational training. It could also mean going to some type of therapeutic thing that's been recommended for that individual. So at the end of the day, if we really truly want to rehabilitate, if we really truly want to end mass incarceration, if we really truly want to provide that light at the end of the tunnel that inspires good behavior, that keeps us safe, that lowers tensions behind bars, that actually shows someone a light at the end of the tunnel, we've got to get this done. So I urge everyone that's on this call to get petition signatures in your community, because it's really going to make a positive difference in the lives of not only those who would get Good Time, but everyone else in Michigan as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have so much information that's been shared with us. It is so important that we support this initiative. We get out and we get those signatures, and so that we can get this done and save those that are in so they can become productive citizens. We need your help. I'd like to ask our next speaker, Kim Woodson, if she would share her story. Kim?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Like every speaker before me, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your personal insight, for especially just opening up your heart and your soul on this delicate topic. Now, I want you to listen to this. TIS, terror and stagnation. That's what they are, inside Michigan Department of Corrections. Imagine, if you will, somebody has told you to be on timeout, but is giving you nothing to do to correct the reason why you are on timeout. And I got a bunch of individuals around me who is on timeout as well for different levels or degrees of defenses. But we are all have one thing in common. We have to stay in timeout until they let us go. If we have no direction, I'm going to turn to you or you for some input, because I'm seeking, because I'm in a horrible place and I don't know how I got myself there. And I'm trying to figure out how to become perfect so that I can fit back into society. If I don't have direction through programming or mentorships or something that I can feed into this broken vessel to heal, I'm going to come back in society broken. I don't want good time to come back for people to get out. I want good time to come back because I saw good time in its effect during my earlier years in prison. And I was there when terror and stagnation came into effect. And I saw all hope be soaked out of the prison system like a vacuum. So when I'm saying today, I'm begging and I'm pleading, give people hope. I don't know one individual who has not made a mistake and don't want to be forgiven. But our children, when we put them on timeout, we correct them. I have a beautiful 3-year-old. When I say, J. Marie, you have to be on timeout, I explain to her why, and I try to give her tools to correct the behavior while she's on timeout so that she won't be on timeout again. Those are our children. Those are our mothers, our daughters, our fathers, our brothers, our loved ones, and they are sacred. Just because they made a mistake doesn't mean that they got to be penalized in a way where they lose all humanity. Locking someone in a cage and giving them nothing to work on the reason why they're there is worse than anything I can think of. You creating a monster, and then you say, you a monster and we punishing you again. Get to the root of the problem, give them programming and counseling, give them whatever incentive they need to correct the behavior. Because if the person next to them is bigger and badder and their influence is better, they're going to follow that individual. It is up to Michigan Department of Corrections to put things in play so that these individuals can really be corrected and come back to us in society whole. 90% of those individuals, that 33,000 is coming home. I applaud you to let them do time dignified. Let them have programming, but let them work their way back to us. Something that is earned is more valuable than something that is given. Please, thank you and be blessed. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Kim. Next, we'll have our state senator, Senator Erika Geiss.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Michigan United. Thank you, Good Time Initiative and Voting Access for All for having me be part of this important conversation. I want to, and I thank everyone for sharing their stories, myself back in the center of this frame, for sharing their stories. This is such an important initiative. We need to get people to sign the petitions so that this can be on the November ballot. And the reason it needs to be done this way is because we have 2 bills in the legislature. House Bill 4489, which is the lead on that is Representative Kyra Harris Bolden, and also Senate Bill 649. The lead on that is Senator Jeff Irwin. I'm among the co-sponsors of the Senate bill. The bills are very similar to what the what is on the ballot initiative. However, it's even what's on the ballot initiative is even stronger. And the reason it's so necessary to get these signatures and get the good time legislation, good time bills, ballot proposal, to the people is because the legislature has failed to act. Year after year, or session after session, similar bills have been introduced. And right now, both of these bills are stuck in the judiciary committees in their two respective chambers, with no clear indication of when or if they're going to move. And we do a lot of lip service up here in the Dome. I'm in my office right now about criminal justice reform and about second chances. But then when it comes to the types of policy changes where the rubber can meet the road and where we could be taking that 40 grand that Reverend Milford mentioned, 40 grand per inmate that is being spent, and actually investing in restorative justice, in corrections, which ironically is the name of the department, but we provide no correction, in making sure that we are treating people who are serving a sentence with some semblance of humanity. This body here in Lansing is more interested in a perversion of law and order than they are in making sure that we are returning whole people back to our communities. And this touches every single one of these pleasant peninsulas that are in our state motto. And we need to make sure that when we are sending people home, that we put those tools in place, that they can come back and be productive members of society, come back and be parts of our community. And that is what we should be doing. And since the legislature has failed to act, it's time for the people to move and to act. So I urge everyone who's able to sign one of the petitions, of course, for your correct county, to do so that this can be put on the November ballot. So that as a public, we are saying that we want people to be able to come home, but we want them to be able to come home whole. We want them to be able to have the programs and the access to education while they're inside, so that when they come back out, that we can re-welcome them into our communities. So necessary. It's that this gets done, and that this gets done this year. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I think all of the other stories are more important than anything I could say beyond making sure that we are using this other tool, which is the tool at the ballot box, to get this important initiative passed. So the Good Time Initiative, for folks who are watching, we need to make sure that we are supporting and rallying behind the Good Time Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Geiss. You just said something that I've thought about. I've often said it because we have so much going on where the legislators right now are focusing on so many other things that they're important to them, but they're not helping our community. And this is one of the things that they need to focus on and take care of this kind of business instead of worrying about some of the other nonsense that they're talking about, like taking the 39 the bills that they were trying to do to suppress our vote. Focus on these kind of things, and they're not doing that. I just had to say that, as you said, it just brought it back to me. First, thank you all. There was so much information that was shared. It was so much important information. Thank you all for the information that you shared, your personal stories. We needed that, and that hopefully there's some, this information gets out across the state. This is so important. I'm going to stop and ask if you have any questions. Please put them in the chat. I do have some questions, but if there are anyone from any of the media have any questions, please, we would like for you to ask your questions so we can put this information out. Put your questions in the chat. If there's someone here in the call, I'm just going to read the questions. And if there's someone here that can give us the answer real quick, please do so. Explain when the signatures need to be returned. If anyone can take that question.
Kathy Elder Leslie posted it in the chat box that we need to have them returned between May 1st and May 15th.
All right, thank you very much. Do online petitions count? Someone sent me a link to fill out the thing online, and can you explain that?
No, Michigan does not allow online petitions to be legally active for ballot. You have to have physical signatures. And because we're supposed to like verify the signature with the voter's registration address to make it legal. So you can't do it. Anybody can sign something online and it can be somebody else's name. We have to visually check the signature of each ballot.
And those signatures will be compared to what's on record. So all of those signatures need to be carefully gathered. The address that you put down has to be the same one, for example, that's on your driver's license. Make sure all of that links up, because trust me, there are many auditors who are going to be looking at this, and they'll be only too happy to disallow any signature that they can.
Thank you. The name that's on the petition, it says to repeal truth in sentencing. Please understand that is the same bill that we're talking about today. The Good Time Initiative is the same as the repeal truth in sentencing. Does anyone have any other questions?
Kathy, this is Michelle. I have a question for the Senator, Erika Geiss, if you will.
Yes.
More like a challenge. We speak of a Good Time Initiative and how she say there's a lot of lip service up there. I challenge them to allow some of the returning citizens to come stand in front of the Senate. Let them know us personally. Let them hear why we're fighting so hard for that, because it will give them more fight if they can hear from somebody that it has personally affected. We will be up to the challenge. Is she open to that?
Senator Geiss?
Oh, absolutely. I think you can, you're as a returned citizen, this place up here, this is your house too. This is the people's house. So you can reach out, you can come to committees and session and observe session. There's rules for the session floor, but you can also reach out to legislators. I'm going to put in the chat the legislative website for how you can follow the bills that are in existence, and how you can write to the committee chairs so that you can urge a hearing. I still think there is value in urging hearings for both of these bills alongside, like, this isn't one or the other. This is alongside getting the signatures and gathering the signatures for the Good Time petition. So absolutely, I think that's important, and that it's just another, I hate to use the overly used cliche, but it's another tool in the proverbial toolbox. Members who need to hear from returning citizens and the loved ones of people who are still on the inside. I will tell you, when I first got elected in 2015, one of the first things that I was invited to do was to go visit with the lifers at Women's Huron Valley. January 6th, 2015. I remember that date. And that was such an important experience to have, and to hear the stories. So this is necessary. We need to hear from all y'all too.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes left to go. Does anyone have any additional comments? Any other questions?
Kathy, I would like to urge everyone, I want you to act like we have no signatures gathered at all at this point, and that we still need 500,000 signatures before the 15th of May. We need all hands on deck. It doesn't matter. This is a bipartisan situation. It don't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. This is a humane thing to do. If you have a heart and you want people to be corrected with love and rigor, because you can't put someone in a box and don't give them a reason why they're there to correct it. And I'm gonna pass it over to Pastor Dale so he can close us out.
Well, I just want to repeat something I suggest. Oh, I love her. I just want to repeat what I suggested earlier, is that if you are a member of a faith community, I want you to raise your hand in that faith community, just like I raised my hand here. Speak to your faith leader, get them to go to goodtimeinitiative.org, get them to register your house of faith as a place to gather signatures. Because if every house of faith in Michigan was to join together as a groundswell of faith, this would pass in a heartbeat. We don't have much time. So this week, talk to your faith leader, get them to get the petitions signed at your place of worship. Amen. Can I hear an amen?
All right. Amen. All right. Thank you. Any final comments from anyone else? All right. Well, we would like to close this out by thanking VAAC and our Proactive Project for all the participants and everyone that's helped to organize this event. Our Proactive Project is Michigan United in Liberty and Justice. These are some of those that help organize this. The Michigan State Senator Erika Geiss. We'd like to thank you for representing the 6th District. Danny Jones, our VAAC chairperson. Elder Leslie of Michigan United. Reverend Dale Milford, co-chairperson of Board of Justice. Natalie Holbrook, our program director for American Friends Service Committee. Bonnie Zabel, our criminal justice advocacy coordinator. Michelle Pearson, our grassroots organizer. Kim Woodson, our founder of Redeeming Kimberly. And all the ones behind the scene, Danny C. I'm not going to mess your name up. It's Danny C. I'll leave it at that. We know who you are. Daniel Gordon, Lakeisha Watson, and especially Angela Davenport for all the hard work that you all put into putting this event together. If there's anyone else that have from the press area that would like to ask any questions, otherwise I will close this out. I don't see any other comments or questions. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your time. And we will work hard to get these signatures by May 15th. Do all you can do, share as much information as you can with your community, especially the faith-based community. We need your help. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hashtag Freedom Earned 2022.
Say it one more time, Kimberly.
Hashtag Freedom Earned 2022.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. A good afternoon.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.